certainly didn't do pretty good with Georgia.
It's good to get back in person. I know. So he knows your pastor. He knows your pastor.
Then I ran, watched what Bill was doing in its expanding mission, and it's continued to expand. So I was on the board for a few years, joined AM, started traveling extensively, and got off the board because I don't believe in half commitment. Right? I wanted to be doing it, so we're really just supporting financially now. I'm happy to join the Cato campaign with Christine. Anyway, I'm thrilled to have many people joining in this campaign. Christine Beckler is somewhere here, right here, has done a tremendous job leading this and made good progress. And she's going to be on the dais later to tell us more about what's going on there. So we'll hear more about that. But Beckler's, did John make it? Okay. Oh, thank you. There's John. Thank you. But tonight we also have some people that have recently joined this campaign as well. BMO Harris is here, represented tonight by somebody, I think, as well. And then United Way, longtime supporter of Bill, seriously from, I know I was involved in the finances back in the 80s, and you guys were significant then, and really a great organization helping us. So anyway, I don't want to stand up here and talk too much longer because you really want to hear about the organization. We have great people, thankfully, in the organization. And Adam Alonso leads this execution of our mission and is doing a fantastic job. I've asked Adam to give just 3 minutes about what Bill does. I know many of you know what it does already, but some people I invited have not known of my commitment to Bill or much about Bill until tonight. So I want 3 minutes from Adam. So Adam, thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Bryon. And thank you all for being here this evening. We're excited to have a great conversation. Thank you to my panelists who are here, and David will be moderating. BUILD has been around since 1969. We're over 52 years old. We're a comprehensive youth service organization. We think about our work around our core work, which includes intervention services for our highest, most at-risk young people, our prevention services, really trying to prevent them from entering into a life that might lead them to a path of destruction or into negative behaviors and places. And our education work, which is helping young people see their way to college, to jobs, and career. Right? So we call that our core programming. We surround that with our clinical and community supports or programs, individual and group therapy, and programs that really center on helping young people heal from trauma. And I think probably one of my favorite departments is really our enrichment programs. And we wrap that around with opportunities for kids to learn about art, music, and not just learn about it, but to actually do it, right? Gardening, jobs, you name it. It's the space where young people get a chance to explore, try things out. And it could be that they picked up the paintbrush for the first time, absolutely hate it, right? I'll never paint again. That's fine, but maybe they love music instead, or just the converse might happen. So we think about our programs and how we provide services that way. Today, BUILD is an $8 million organization. We are 110 staff members and growing. We serve annually about 5,000 young people and community members, and we're excited for the opportunity to continue to dive deeper into our work and really to dive and move more deeply into communities with services and opportunities for them. So that is BUILD in a nutshell. Oh wait, I do have some other remarks here. So I'd like to introduce our moderator, David Mendell, who is with Crain, and we're excited to have him here. And he's written a lot of work around the issue of violence and sort of what can we do to really help change that narrative. So we're excited to have him here and moderate this great panel.
Yeah, I'm the one who was supposed to make sure no fisticuffs. We all know the size and scope of our city's most enduring problem, the one that drags Chicago into the national news all too frequently, which is why we're here tonight, and that's the violence that our communities have experienced. I won't delve too deeply into what we all know is happening. It's been occurring for years, for generations, even. Predates my arrival in Chicago. I was a reporter for the Tribune for a decade, and in that time I came into contact with all sorts of stories that delved into the city's violence. It was an eye-opening experience for a young idealistic journalist. My wife now is an NBC 5 News reporter, and she comes home some days almost as if she is a grief counselor in the last couple of years. She's done, it seems like every day she's doing another story, interviewed another mom or a brother or the grandparents of a Chicagoan who's died from gun violence. And usually it's a very young Chicago. Some days she's comes home clearly distraught. It's, so gun violence impacts our household in some way. The side effects are there anyway. But I became immersed in the subject after writing a series of stories for Crain's Forum just before the pandemic. And the stories were titled, The Moment Is Now. They explored various issues surrounding the problem. The main story was pretty hopeful, though, actually, at that time. After all, a new mayor seemed to be genuinely concerned with fixing neighborhood violence. She even seemed to proclaim that gun violence was, she did proclaim that gun violence was her number one issue that she would tackle. She had a new safety director who had successfully worked on those problems in LA, and things seemed to be trending possibly in a good direction. So the story was rather hopeful. But now, a couple of years later, the safety director became entangled in City Hall politics, and she's gone. A pandemic hit and stalled much of the progress that seemed to have such momentum. I outlined these issues in some more stories that I wrote. Yet it can be argued that progress is being made. The mayor did send $7.5 million into community outreach programs, street outreach programs, and other anti-violence organizations. And it seems as, and some of these workers now who I speak with, seem to feel as if they are finally being valued and they have funding and have some sustained level of resources. Nevertheless, over the summer, there were some statistics that were just utterly depressing, and if you've all watched the news, I'm sure you've seen it every day. Gun violence in West Pullman was up 566% 2 summers before. In North Lawndale, 201%, South Lawndale, 160%, Chatham, 116%. These 3 areas were targeted by City Hall and fell in violence: West Englewood, Roseland, and Humboldt Park. So it seems as if one area gets targeted by the city, by Chief Cato's force, by community leaders, and the shootings subside. But they don't disappear. They just seem to move to the next neighborhood, and the violence is just, in our community, is just relentless. So that brings us to today. With attention from the media, from politicians, from the business community, and so many other places, we're here today to talk about how we can solve this problem, or what can be done. Our panelists here are varied, and I'm going to turn the thoughts of the show over to them, and each one, I think, can introduce him or herself, if you would, and we'll go from there.
All right. Alonso, CEO of Bill.
Ernest, Cato, Chief of Bureau of Counterterrorism at the Chicago Police Department.
Pat Spratt, a circuit recorder of Cook County and a board member at Bill.
Max Cerda, I sit in the North Bend Review Board and a builder.
I'm Anthony Bush, a builder, and now I'm a lobbyist.
That cuts it to the chase.
Everybody like,
So the first question, Anthony, now is going to go to you.
Okay.
You were so forthright there. So how can businesses, some of the people in this room, how can they play a meaningful part of the solution to what the crisis is that we're facing?
Okay, so I'm gonna give you guys a little bit of my background, and then we're gonna move forward. So, you know, because I'm one of those people, I got to tell a story to give you the answer. Is that cool, John? Okay, perfect. So, so growing up, my mom didn't have a high school education. My father didn't have a high school education. I'm from the North Lawndale community, the second community that he named on that list. And I grew up very rough, right? So I went to Mendell High School where I ended up on this list to be shot and killed by 14. I'm 26 now. So one of the biggest things that I think shifted my life, because I was on that trajectory, and it wasn't just like, oh, maybe he might be, but no, like, it's data that showed that I was on that trajectory. One of the things that I did was, I ended up coming to Bill one day, and I had a survival mindset, and that's most of the mindset that most criminals have in Chicago. What that survival mindset is that I will do anything just to survive. So what that looks like, the median income in my community was $22,000 a year. I was 14, I can't get a job. So that means my mom has to support a 6 family. She has to support 6 people in our family on a $22,000 income. So everything is short, because to even live in an apartment is $900 in rent. So just, you know, take a guess how much that is after taxes. So I had to learn to do something to just support my family. And what that meant was I would do anything by any means necessary to support my mom. And I'm the only man in the house. So I have 4 sisters and my mom to think about. So that means I was willing to do whatever. So what that looked like was I gambled. So with gambling, you know, you get certain skills, high risk, high reward, you figure out the odds. The second thing that I did, I was able to persuade people to get what I want, when I wanted it, how I wanted it, to get it, pretty much. So fast forward, a couple months go by, I ended up meeting this short lady in Bill. Short lady's name is Christine Backlog, by the way. So Christine, you know, we had a really good rapport because we always said something to each other. Like every day I would walk in, I may not be having a good day, I may not even speak to her, but she made me feel respected and like a human. So what that looked like is every day she would say something to me. So I say about a month went by, and she said, Anthony, come paint with me. I said, I don't got time to paint, because on my mind, I have so many issues, adult issues that I have to deal with as a teen. So I'm like, I got to figure out how we're going to eat tonight. She said, Anthony, I want you to figure out about this painting because it's money in it. So, you know, a green flag went up in my head, money? Okay, I'll come here. So she taught me soft skills first, because I used to have a potty mouth. So, you know, she started really talking to me about professionalism. The second thing that me and her talked about was the business aspect of painting. So now you're teaching me business skills, right? On the back end of it, she had someone come in named Patricia, and she actually sold art for a living. So she really gave me the strategic plan of what business was when it came down to art. So I tell you guys that story to say 3 things. Now also, I'm gonna give you one more part of it. It was a business on 19th and Pulaski where this older black guy, he had a t-shirt business called the Goodie Shop. And he taught me, okay, all these bad skills that you learn in the streets, you can use them, and here's how. When it comes down to doing a risk management report, which I do now, I learned from actually gambling. When it comes down to do strategic management things, I actually use that today to get a PMP. When it came down to actually being able to persuade people to do things, I'm a lobbyist. But I say that to say now that what our community needs from businesses is soft skills. If the businesses in our community could come in and teach professionalism, so that when people actually do bring jobs to our community, that we can actually stay in those jobs because we understand how to conduct ourselves in certain situations. The second part to that would actually be able to talk to these people with respect and meet them where they are. So what that looks like is if you have a student that's coming in and they have all these things on their mind, when they come into your place of business, that you actually can talk to them and actually understand where they're coming from. Everybody just not acting irate because that's who you are as a person, or, you know, oh, they like the crazy lifestyle. It's more about survival. You get what I'm saying? So it's like, I think that those 2 things, if we actually implement those in our communities, that we will have a more successful, efficient, and effective effective environment.
If I may jump in, Anthony, on what you said, and I know we talked about this a little bit, and I think you said something important, right? So it was that someone treated you as a human being, as a person with respect. You weren't necessarily always prepared and ready to listen, right? There were days you wouldn't necessarily speak back necessarily, but it was persistent kindness, right? Which led to then a relationship to start to build trust, right? Because I can give you a job, but if you're struggling with trauma, you have zero trust, you can't do these things, you're not ready for the workforce necessarily, right? It's got to take more of a comprehensive approach, because when you think about communities that have been so disinvested and you're struggling, you're on survival mode in your own home, how would you know anything different than this is like day and night living for the next day, right? So it takes a lot of work to support, to get people to that place to then take a job.
So, can I jump in there real quick? You know, Anthony also said something that's very important, exposure. Being exposed to positive things in their lives. Businesses that are willing to come into communities, not only just to open up shop and make money, but also give young folks an opportunity to learn skills. Anthony also said something that's very, very real. Young black men and young Hispanic men daily have those skills, and they apply them to do things that hurt their community non-stop. But to have the ability to actually go into a business and learn how to apply those skills. I myself also, I grew up in the West Garfield area. Now, Anthony talked about something that we call hustle skills. The ability to hustle someone out on the street to make a few dollars. Not just because they want to do it, but because they want to feed their families. Anthony also said something else that's very important that goes on daily. Being the only young man inside his household, watching his mother not have the ability to feed him because either the father's not home or the father is the problem. So we have multiple young people daily who are out on the street with hustle skills, out there trying to feed their families. And to see a young man who's a builder actually sit up here who could have went the other way. What you think about it? He could have. There was a fork in the road. He chose the fork with Bill's. That's whoever that short lady is. I want to thank her.
Right there.
Oh, you're the short lady. Well, thank you. Because Anthony could have chose the other direction.
Also, besides soft skills and the exposure, where it begins is generally caring. Because that's, you know, at Bill, when I was with Bill, we always say we're only effective as they are receptive. But how do we make them receptive? When we connect with these brothers and sisters, let them know we really, really care. And that instant of moment where that person realizes, man, this person really cares, that's when things starts happening. That's when you're receptive to this exposure, to these lessons and these teachings. So it's also that genuine, that spirit, man, that empathetic spirit for your brother, man, or your sister, you know, to really care that what's happening, what they're going through, and give them the tools necessary. But before we can give them the tools, we got to make them receptive. And that receptiveness comes through connection.
I learned, it was in January of 2013 when Heidi Pendleton was killed. That one hit me in the forehead, and I thought to myself, what can one person do? I'm just one person. But when I realized that our young people are our most precious, non-renewable resource, I realized we needed to do something. And he epitomizes that. He didn't get killed on the streets. His opportunity and his potential was met. And look at where he is now. So Bill does this with the young people who come to it who are school age. I do it in the Restorative Justice Court with the young people who have been charged with a nonviolent crime. The goal is to let these young people meet their potential so that we and they can see what they can do for the future. Those who are killed as collateral damage in somebody else's fight, the little ones. There was that baby on her father's lap in a car, and some thug came up to the car wanting to shoot him. He shot the baby. That child and we never got to see what her potential was to contribute to the world at large. There's a lot of them that are dying. So we need to get a hold of this and get people, the school-age kids, get them into build. And if they get arrested, bring them to my court. In my court, they're treated with humanity and kindness and respect. And that's not something defendants are used to being treated. If they go to the criminal justice court, the criminal justice court looks at one moment in their life. The moment they did something that they got arrested for. That's the focus of everything in the criminal justice court. And they're told when they go to the criminal justice court, don't talk. Don't talk. Don't even take the stand. I don't want you to take the stand. When all they want to do is tell their story. So when they come to the criminal justice court, they get to tell their story. I encourage them to let go of the emotional body armor they're all wrapped up in and let people know who they are and tell the people in the circle, which is the function of the court, the peace circles. Tell the people in the circle what was going on in their life when that happened and what was going on in the years before it. And when they come through my court and they graduate, I know that's a life we've saved. But more than that, think of the lives we've saved because that person isn't out there doing crimes.
Anthony, I'm going to ask you this question because you're the youngest member of the panel. Can you describe a challenge facing young people that doesn't get a lot of attention and is underreported?
Can you say that one more time?
Describe a challenge facing young people that doesn't get a lot of attention and is underreported, something that we in the media, my wife and I, don't present to the world enough or at all, perhaps.
I'm going to have to go back to the mindset thing. I think that also with the mindset is adultism. Like that's a lot of things that I think that a lot of these young people that I talk to are like, oh, I'm not heard, or I'm not, you know what I'm saying? I think that we need to get back to actually having conversations, having these peer reviews. Like when it comes down to, one of the things young people talk to me about is that when they come into jobs, they feel as though they're looked at as just, oh, I'm a kid, I don't know what I'm talking about. I think that we need to start having more conversations, open conversations with the students about what's going on in the city, but just what's going on in their everyday lives.
Chief Cato, I'm going to give you an opportunity to say what you think is underreported. Take a shot at us.
Homelessness. I think we don't pay enough attention to children who are homeless. Children sleeping in hallways. Children couch surfing from apartment to apartment because they're in fear to go home. I think that's something that's unreported. We need to pay more attention to it. We need to pay attention to when a child is arrested. Maybe we need to focus on why were you arrested, where were you at, why couldn't you go home? What I learned in my career, just going up through the ranks, I find a lot of children who are afraid to go home, who don't want to go home. They don't want to go home because there's no food in the refrigerator. Mom and dad may be abusing drugs. So you find them sleeping on sofas of other folks' homes or in hallways. Or, fortunately for them, they have other places to go, other resources to go to, like Build, where they can be there all day and have a meal. And then they'll try to go home when it's late at night when everyone is asleep. So we don't look at children that are homeless.
Also, what's also equally important that I've seen when I was in intervention with Bill and working in schools is the schools, getting kids to school. As you said, Chief Cato, there's many issues that these kids are, many challenges they're facing. And let's be clear what it is that we're looking at. Some of it is generational. You know, and like Chief Cato said, some kids don't want to go home because going to school is the only normalcy they have. We need to find a way to get kids into school, not just to truancy, but to really literally go pick these little brothers and sisters up, bring them to school, because there might be other reasons why they can't go to school. And I tell you, one of the strongest holds that I have for intervention and a lot of my resources was through schools, was through students. Even students that only came once a month, and that's only because they couldn't get there. They can't pass this block, they can't go over it, these brothers are looking for them, or the police are on them, you know. And so getting them to school is a place where there's normacy in a lot of these young guys, a lot of these young people's lives. And that's where we gotta begin. Because a lot of stuff that we was able to quell, to intervene, was through information that we got during school. Because these little brothers and sisters, that place, that school, becomes a sacred, a sanctuary for them. It's not just a place of education, it becomes a sanctuary because it's the only normalcy. Like Chief Cato said, they get fed, they eat, they're warm. They got people that care. They got people coming, they got bills that come into these schools. Hey brother, what's going on with you, man? I care about you. You don't know how many times I said that to young kids. I know you may not believe me, but I care about you, man. And just projecting that, that sentiment to the point where they accept it. They say, damn, maybe he's for real. Maybe he really does, because majority of our youths, majority of the adults that have been in their life have failed them already. So it's hard for them to connect with another adult. But when you create that space, a space like that school gives you, right? You'll be surprised at magic that you can produce, man.
Let me jump in for a moment. Everybody has a card that you can write a question on here, and somebody's collecting them. Kirsten's collecting them. So we'll get to those later. I want to make sure everybody knew that you had those at the
Can I
table.
tell a story in here real quick?
You can.
When we talked about homelessness with children, when I was the commander of the 15th District, we created something called Hip Hop Tuesday. We were able to get donors to donate multiple 68-screen televisions, about 6 of them, put them throughout our community room. We had games. Prior to the games, they had to do homework. We had volunteers who came in and worked with the children. Well, before I knew it, we went from 7 children to probably about, we went to 15. One day I went there, I counted about 30. Well, mother kid, this lady came in, she's all hysterical. She goes, where's my son? Why did you all lock my son up? I said, well, let's go to the roster, let's check the roster out. I went to look at the roster and said, ma'am, your son wasn't arrested. I don't know what to tell you. She goes, they said he was at the police station. I said, well, he's not arrested. I said, wait a minute, why don't you come for a walk with me? Well, we walked in our community room. A son is sitting there with other children, playing, having a great time, was comfortable, didn't want to leave. I said, well, ma'am, I'm sorry, he didn't sign it, I didn't know he was here. I said, but you can take him with you now. She goes, oh, no, can I leave him here? So we created a safe space for multiple children in the Austin neighborhood with something simple as Hip Hop Tuesday. They had a place to come, they were fed, they did their homework, and they had folks to teach them other issues. So it worked out well.
Let me ask you, that hasn't been replicated in other districts, has it? Or where do you...
That's not one of your questions.
It's a journalist question. Sorry, it's a reporter question. I thought I was allowed to ask questions.
Yeah. Look, I'm sorry, if I could just piggyback on this one, and I know you're the honest, forgive me. But I will say, it hasn't been replicated that I'm aware of, so I'll say it, and I will say that the 15th District, Austin, has the most amazing way of thinking about engaging young people in community. And not that I'm here to say that policing is perfect, we all know it is not, but no one does policing the way that 15th does in any other police district. We're here on the same panel together as partners, we support one another. Our young people know Cato, high five Cato. They know the department, they know the people there. It's a very different model, but that came from strong leadership who understood to be different and change the system. You have to be different, and you have to go against the grain for the greater good, and that was definitely under Commander Cato then, who's now Chief Cato today. That's what leadership looks like, to change a system, to make something look better, be better. Sorry, Anthony, please, I know you wanted to jump up.
I think, as I said back when I thought, one of the biggest things that I think it is mental health. And I think mental health is a big issue in our neighborhoods, and we don't address it. Because when we see kids like acting out, we just say, oh, you're a bad kid, or you just acting out. But like I stated earlier, we go through real things, and we have real things on our minds, such as we can't feed ourselves or our families. So, sometimes that calls you to act out or act a certain way. So I think that's one thing that's written off about our children so quickly, honestly.
And again, the flip side to what this brother just said is that the educators, the adults, the social workers that are doing this work, they also need to be trauma-informed care to understand these things. To understand these, a lot of times these kids going through so much stuff and they just see them as a badass kid, excuse the expression, but they're not. They're hurting, man. They're hurting, they need to heal. And if we don't understand what trauma-informed care is, all we're going to see is the surface, not the underlying, what's underneath, what causes disease. And there's many, many, many variables. I wish there was a magic wand where we can wave it and heal everything, but everything and everyone is a process, man.
Be vulnerable, people who understand who they are, people who are welcoming and open to meeting someone who is wildly unlike them and their experiences, and without judgment.
I was waiting until they
right?
writing down questions so I could take some video footage.
That's where it starts. And then you think about integrated services, because no one program fits one young person, right? You really need to, which is to, by build, continue to evolve and integrate new services, was because, you know, Johnny was here because he was maybe coming through the intervention program, they kept him off the streets, he didn't go back to jail, but it had to be more than that. Johnny needed now the support of a clinician because he's dealing with severe trauma. So we have that here for Johnny, right? Johnny used art as a tool to express himself, and guess what? He got plugged into the art, and now Johnny took on one more thing, right? Johnny joined the public speaking contest because he wanted to tell a story that finally he was prepared to tell. Johnny applies to college. Johnny gets a scholarship, right? All these things, right? Every opportunity. So an integrated approach needs to be the wave of how youth development organizations move. And as I sit on calls now with my peers and colleagues across the city, with the city of Chicago, trying to figure out and understand how do we reduce violence, it's interesting to hear the trend now that everyone suddenly has an integrated approach. Podcasting, jewelry making, right? Yeah. Mental health, this is fantastic, because this is what it should be, right? If we think about our kids in the suburbs, they get all that, right? After school, at their school, at a park camp, and a program. So when I think about what's the return on investment, you invest in the right people to do the toughest jobs, and then you source these programs effectively and efficiently so they have the money and the resources to do what they want. What can corporate business do? Invest in programs that show that the Anthony Bushes of the world are here on a stage, making a whole lot of money, doing a great job, but all applying the things he's learned. This is our next mentor to young men and women to say, I did it, and this is how. And let me bring it in deeply to you. That's impactful. And it's been said, he could get a fork in the road, and he chose the other path. And not to be cliche, but this has changed Anthony's trajectory, and we're absolutely proud of him and his accomplishments. And know he's going to be out there changing the world. Our next president. I mean, really, you know, why not?
I'll let you know.
This last one is what are the most effective interventions you've seen? And Chief Cato, I'm going to throw that at you because the city is Mayor Lightfoot has put money into this effort. Street outreach in particular. Could you talk a little bit about maybe street outreach, how you work with that sector? I know you've been supportive.
A lot of our issues that are going on now, not only in the city of Chicago, not only the state of Illinois, but throughout our country, will only be solved with collaborative approaches. It will not be solved by police alone. It will not be solved by government alone. Everyone is going to have to put skin into the game. My approach to see reduction in violence is a collaborative effort, and we started that in the 15th district. We started something called the Austin Response Team, where we took a collaborative approach to address issues one by one throughout the district. So listen to this clearly. 2 years we saw violence reduce at the same time as arrests reduced. So we were focused in the right places, the right people at the right time. Arrests didn't go up as violence went down. They both went down at the same time 2 years in a row. And this is how we did it. We were transparent in the district. I believe in telling you exactly what's going on, where it's happening and for you to put your resources there. And this is what we did the very first time around. Adam thought I was crazy. I clearly said to the organizations within the Austin area, and I only wanted the ones that had brick and mortars within the boundaries. No outside organizations, I wanted those within the area. But I wanted their CEOs, to come to the meetings. Those who ran those groups had to come. I didn't want you to send your lieutenants. I didn't want you to send your managers. I didn't want you to send your assistants or your secretaries. You had to come to show me how serious that you were about this. And when Adam showed up and the other heads of their organization showed up, I told them who was causing the problems. I told them where it was happening at. I told them what I needed from you. Then I told them what I would do to support them. And we worked together. We met every other week. We talked about what was going on in the district, and they provided the resources. And we went there, even to the point of doing job fairs on the street. We asked other corporations to come in and do job fairs on the street, but we asked them not to advertise it. I didn't want anyone showing up with resumes and briefcases. I wanted those who didn't understand what it took to get a job to show up. It was a great sight to see, but it was a sad sight to see. And went about 3 blocks of folks who didn't understand how to use a laptop, who didn't understand to do other things. So when I talk about a collaborative approach, we have something called custom notification, that we do something that's called custom notification. I have to embarrass you, because I don't have to tell this. It's just a quick story. A 14-year-old was shot in both legs. We identified the 14-year-old. So I decided to take my own medicine. Since I'm the head of the area, I decided I would do it. Since I was going to do it, I decided the head who was part of the custom notification process, Bill was going to do it too, which was who ran Bill, so I called Bill. So I decided the principal of the high school, if this kid was going to go, he had to go. So what's custom notification is? We identify someone who has a high propensity to either be shot or be the person who would do the shooting. We're going to knock on their doors, and we're going to see what they need in their lives and what resources they need. Well, this 14-year-old, I got hold of Adam. He went with me. The 14-year-old went to the 14-year-old's house. The mother came down. When she realized that she had some help, she started crying. She asked the 14-year-old to come down. When he came down, he had a bullet wound in each leg that had not been treated. They both were infected. She didn't take him to the hospital because she said she didn't have a ride. Adam immediately called for his van to come over. Then they followed up with other doctor visits. We learned that they didn't have groceries in the house. He then called and took them grocery shopping. The principal of Michelle Clark High School, Principal Anderson in turn, said, now I'm your uncle. He followed up with him for school and still following up with him. We found out that he had brothers. They then provided services for his brothers to prevent them from becoming victims or shooters. So the collaboration approach, the intervention approach is huge. Now with street outreach. I work with street outreach. What a huge resource to actually have someone who has committed to problems in their community now be the ones who help solve the problems in those communities. But you have to take a risk. You have to trust them. You have to respect them. They have to believe that they can trust and respect you. So in my case, what has happened? They're now they become such a great resource that we're now able to respond to certain areas where violence may occur. So the only way our issues are going to be solved is a collaborative approach. Police, businesses, community, faith-based, sitting at the table, being transparent. And I'll tell you right now, if any of you want to join me, I'll give you the data and I'll tell you which corner to go to. If you want to join me, while I work with Build and other organizations, I'll tell you which households need help. If you want to join me, while I work with Build and other organizations, I'll tell you what the children that need help. If you want to join me, I'll tell you the business that needs repair. I can go on and on. But I think my 2 minutes is exceeding my time. But it's only going to work with a collaborative approach. That's the only way.
Well, Chief, we're taking audience questions now, so
All bets are off. Anthony, you're the popular one with the audience. This questioner wants to know, he said, you spoke about the importance of Build Team's persistence engaging you, but that only was possible because you walked through the door at Build. What prompted you to walk through the door, and how does that inform others? How can we inform others or push others to get through that door?
So, one was Chris, because I went to Manly High School, and that list that he's talking about, I actually was on that list. So, what it boils down to was opportunity. I had a need, and he sold me on that my need could be met if I went to this certain organization. And I mean, I had to take him up on it because I was in a desperate situation. So with me in a survival mode, if you tell, like most of these kids that's out here, if you tell them that you can help them get to a certain opportunity, they're gonna come. He said, hey, they will help you, you know, get to college. I knew that college was the only way out. I knew that I needed money. He said, listen, I think that we got some programs. You probably have to do a couple things, but you know, we can help you get to some money. And I was like, okay, I'm there. Let me know what time to be outside.
I think this goes to you, Adam. Has Bill ever pursued assistance from surrounding communities of Austin, such as Oak Park, Berlin, Cicero, Forest Park?
Good question. So the suburbs are interesting, and I will say, having worked first in Cicero before I even came to Bill, that there is a definite border around Cicero, and you don't cross over to ask for help from the city, because the city is seeing Austin in particular as the perpetrators of violence that happened in Cicero. Cicero being having a lot of racist attitudes and mentalities within that community. Oak Park has extended a hand and wants to know how to help, and so I think having conversations about what that looks like and means, you also have to be sensitive to community, because community didn't necessarily say, we want your help, Oak Park, necessarily. But we as Bill, to what Chief Cato was said about collaboration, we will always collaborate where it makes sense to support positive spaces and places for our young people. So it's whether it's other nonprofits within Austin, whether there was, and I will say this, we did extend into Cicero. They have a community center there on the other side of Laramie, south side of Laramie, and our intervention team would take their young men to Cicero in the evening on a Friday night to shoot hoops. It was a scene because the people in that community center, never see a group of African American young men walk through with their Latino intervention specialists. But they actually played tournaments, and they won the trophy. But, you know, so there's collaboration where possible, but it takes certainly people to be comfortable and build trust with each other to be able to do that. But we as an organization always do that, and always are willing to either extend a hand or take a hand that's offered to us.
This one is to Chief Cato. What do you most need to make progress in protecting youth in Austin? And is Bill helpful? I suppose that means when you wake up in the morning, think, if I can only get this today, what would it be?
You know, that appears to be an easy question, but there's multiple things. I'll tell you what I'm grateful for that has helped. What I'm grateful for is help is partnerships with organizations like Bill, that I can call at a drop of a dime and say this is going on. That I can throw a crazy idea out there with Adam, and it may not appear crazy. I say, Adam, I'm going to these crime scenes, and I see so much mental illness. I see families having trauma in a scene. I see a scene where I have red tape, blood, kids all around the tape, and I need something that can actually address it right away. Well, Adam and I think a lot. He came up with a van. Tell me where I need to go. I have my trauma. I created a trauma team to address mental illness and address trauma on that particular set. That's what I'm grateful for, and that those type of things that work. When I can call up the phone, and I know I don't have the resources on my side, I can call someone like an organization like Adams, Bill, that'll help me address them. So those things, those work. Also, I'm going to add one other thing to this. This is what I'm also that helps. An organization that are willing to help other organizations. And I've seen that also with Bill, with Pastor Joey, with Pastor Epting, multiple organizations where they're working together, and they're helping someone who's working out of his trunk. Someone who's actually on the corner doing it and who's making a difference. So I see Bill mentor other small groups to be effective in communities. So when I can make a phone call to someone and say, look, this is going on over here, it's not really a police matter, can you help me? That works collaboration. Collaboration.
If I could just throw into this, so when Cato called me up and said, hey Adam, there's a situation, we have a person who's having a mental health crisis, can you send your mobile mental health team? I was like, sure, let me just check in with him. I was like, this is all I know. There's someone having a mental health crisis, we need, and Cato has asked us to be there, can you be there? So they show up, they're sort of on the fly. It was actually a little village where it happened, and it turned out that it was a huge police scene with SWAT and everything else that happened. Our clinicians were really freaked out, like, what the hell did you just send us into? And I said, well, I trust Cato, and I know he's not gonna let anything happen. The reality is, and the good news about that is that having our team there, they partnered with another organization, to your previous question, Enlace, there in Little Village, and brought their mental health team, and together they engaged the family, the young person who was in a state of crisis, who honestly, very likely could have been shot. And because of the disruption of having a mental health team there, sort of all eyes on it, we haven't perfected that yet, but it's definitely the way to start thinking about how to respond to mental health crisis. That was on-the-job training for this team in a way, but building trust with Chief Cato to understand that he's not going to send us off into a scene where there's harm to be done. And they felt that there was a victory because that young person actually was able to get the help they needed and not end in a different way. That's collaboration, right? That's trust in the same way that young people trust us as their mentors to bring them into very different situations that they never would have, because this is not a normal partnership. In particular now, in light of everything that's happening and the conversations around policing around the nation. But this is unusual, but it's built on trust and not only saying what you mean, but doing what you mean and being consistent every single time that phone is picked up.
And taking a risk for good. Because I could be unemployed, Chief Cato, if you're wrong.
Hey, but we got a job for you, don't worry.
Max, I'm going to throw that question at you, the initial question. When you wake up in the morning, you think, what do I need today? What would I love to see today? What resource?
You know, let me say, working with Bill as the lead for Humboldt Park, I ended up leaving Bill and I was the lead for Humboldt Park. But before I got to that position, in my mind, I was already where I needed to be in a good space so I could help others. But really being with Bill gave me a further understanding of myself and my purpose, man. And I've always seen schools. Schools are the key, man. I so many times kids will come in, and every time somebody gets shot in Humboldt Park, because I'm from the Humboldt Park area over the weekend, I already know. So I already know what students I'm going to look for. And if I don't see them, I'll go find them. It was going on. And you will be surprised the information that they give us. Not information to prosecute anybody, but information that, look, man, this family's in danger. Because of our communication in the schools, we were able to help families that were literally hostages in their own house. And we had to go talk to people, hey, man, we want to get the family up out of here. Give us this moment. Because we got to acknowledge them. Because they're there longer than we are, right? So for me, one of the things that really work is, like Chief Commander Cato said, that collaboration is everybody's vested interest is in this, whether they see it or not. A lot of people don't care about it until it hits home. But this is this is in the best for everybody's interest to be part of this, to fix this. There's no one solution. And I think Chief Cato said, and this brother here, it's case by case, right? But we can't generalize the approach. There's so many variables to this intervention because there's so many different cases, so many situations and circumstances that not one fits all. You know, we have to be flexible, we have to be mindful and sincere in our approach. But one of the strongest interventions that helped me when I was doing intervention in the Humboldt Park area was working in the schools, man. And let me also say that our young people today, they feel that what's happening in the society in Chicago is the norm. They think that little brothers and sisters getting killed, that's what happened. It's not what happens, man. It ain't right. It's not right. And so and I say that to say this, that the mindset has changed on our young people, man. So what are one of the things that we got to do for down the road? I strongly believe that we need, in the elementary level, we need to start teaching our kids conflict mediation. That should be a curriculum. Because of the violence that's so prevalent in the city of Chicago, we can't help but to think of tomorrow, man, not just today. Because these little brothers and sisters that they lost their father, they lost their brother, they lost their family member, their home is on the streets, they're carrying that with them unless somebody understands what they're going through and help unloosen that valve to let some of that out, man. And I think that is so crucial. And I know this ain't the place, this is the forum to make the CPS, rules or changes, but it is a thought to have, man. Because of this violence so prominent, so generational, it's on a whole different, it's not just about gangbanging no more. It's just straight out reality. It's not just about people, folks, and none of that. It's just, people are just shooting everybody up. There's a mindset, there's an illness taking place, man. It's contagious, man. And we got to worry about the future, another 3-5 years from now. We need to start addressing these young brothers and sisters in these elementary schools and teach them that it's okay to agree to disagree. That don't mean we got to gun each other down because of it. Because this is what they're taught. This is what they know. This is what they see. And the only way to combat that, man, is to reverse that mindset. And you got to do it at a young age.
And piggyback off what Max said, like I told you guys earlier, by any means necessary. So that's the mindset. It's not about, like you said, gangbanging. It's about survival. So if I got to get you so my family can eat, I have no problem with that whatsoever.
You've been a great panel, and that was a powerful ending. Thanks for that. I think we're about to wrap it up. And Adam, I think he has a few final words, if I understand the program correctly.
Yeah. Thank you, certainly, to my colleagues and peers and friends and people who I trust dearly for being here this evening and giving up your time, because it's been a long day and we're all here, and I appreciate it. Thank you all who've come here to listen and share in sort of what we're trying to express here. And I think the takeaway from tonight also is that it is a very complicated issue. There's no one size fits all, but that the message I hope that we all do leave with is not doom and gloom. Because honestly, it does feel that way at times. And the way that media portrays it is that, yeah, your life sucks. Nothing's getting better. People are being shot. People are being carjacked. The pandemic, you can add the list. It's horrible. But the reality is that there is so much hope. There's a lot of hope. There are amazing, great things that are happening. And we have to hold on to that, because we have to deal in hope for our young people. At the end of the day, if we are not holding on to that for them, then what are we really doing? And that's the vital, most important thing that any one of us in this room who comes in contact with those young people downtown, on the corner, wherever, hey, how are you today? Good morning. Good to see you. You don't even have to know them. But they need to see a glimmer of hope, and that people have that. That is the work that we're called to do. And the biggest hope that you'll see in your program that Bill is engaged in right now is to build a 51,000 square foot new youth and community center in South Austin. That is huge, not just in size, because it is, but of what it represents. That space represents hope for a new tomorrow. That space represents to the grandmothers who told us this is for our babies. We are so excited to have a place for them to be safe. This is for our intergenerational opportunities where grandmas and grandpas can come, walk on a track inside, engage with young people there, teach, be in circle, be in community, because rooting people back is what we need to do in our communities, is to root back. And so we thank you this evening for all that you do, and I think Christine is coming up to share a few words as we close. Bryon and Christine.
We're together. But, this is it's been a great forum. I'm so impressed with the professionals that we have on this panel, and thank you for the care and the passion for the city and the people in this. I leave with a lot more hope that there is a better future. And so it's inspiring. And I know we've wanted this kind of feeling to get through the room, And we're not done tonight. I think the panelists are actually going to be able to stand out there and have another drink, or have a drink together. But you can also look at the exhibits of the facility that's being built. Like we've had a great leader, Christina, who's going to tell you about where we stand. But this is great. I love this passion. So thank you.
Good evening. Thank you, Bryon, for hosting this, and please thank Greg in absentia. And thank you all for being here. It really means a lot. Thank you to the panelists and David, he was the top of the list. He was the only one on the list to moderate tonight, so we appreciate all of you. A very short list. And I guess our greatest gratitude is that you really took the time from your precious lives to be here tonight to learn about caring and protecting our most precious value, our most precious resource, which is our young people. We explored some solutions tonight. There's a lot more to learn, and we hope we can get some feedback from all of you. I hope you've been inspired tonight by what you heard from the panelists and by later conversations as Bryon invited you to continue to talk. We need your ideas. We need your support. There are so many individuals who already have stepped forward to help build. Some of you are in the room tonight, and we thank you for your generosity. Some are not here with us tonight. They're staff members, and they are out on the streets working with our most vulnerable youth. We have support across the boards for this project. There's also many corporations and organizations that have stepped forward. Bryon mentioned them earlier. AAM, thank you. BMO, the Caris Foundation, the Weinberg Foundation, United Way. So many others have helped us to get to the point where we have raised $18 million for this project. Our goal is 23. If you count on your fingers or you're good at math, you know the difference. We're looking for $5 million more to complete this. The building is in the ground, the foundation's poured, the precast concrete goes up in a week or two. This is going to take shape. A year from now, we hope you'll all be at our ribbon cutting with thousands of people from the community. Hopefully COVID will be long gone. Celebrating this landmark gateway in the Austin community. If you would like to learn more, please approach staff, our panelists, any one of us. There's a program at your table that describes these wonderful people here who have put their lives on the line for a lot of others. Take a chance to read that. The contact information is in that program if you'd like to learn more about BUILD. I will just tell you from my 40 years of volunteering with BUILD, with the youth, with the staff, with the leadership team, with the board, you get so much more than you give. It is one of the most rewarding and gratifying experiences. And feeling like you're part of the solution is, it's a great feeling. It's a great feeling, right? Right? So Churchill said, we make a living by what we get. We make a life by what we give. So I hope you'll join Bryon and me and the BUILD team and everybody here in helping BUILD to reach our dream, and we hope you'll be part of the solution. So please stick around, enjoy beverages, food, conversation, and let us know if there's anything we can do to help inform you further. Thank you.